We do have Candy. Okay. We'll start the,
I'm here.
welcome. We'll call the meeting,
Hello.
the workshop. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember,
So moved, Your Honor.
Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember Cole?
Aye.
Mayor Furlong?
Aye. The agenda is adopted. So we have a few items. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. I don't think we will, but we'll try to get to all of them. Turn over to City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Yeah, a
Our
few
microphones working?
microphones are on.
Good, good.
A few items to get through. First item is just looking for probably some general conversation. None of these items that are on here this evening looking for any action at the upcoming council meeting tonight or anything like that. But the first one is ball field use and rental fees, and specifically probably more tied to our athletic association groups. A little bit of history, I guess, on it. Years ago, and qualify what years ago meant, we did not charge the athletic association any field use fees. The athletic association provide a lot of field improvements. They donate funds for fencing or multitude of different field improvements. Then there was talk about charging a user fee, and tried to initiate that, and there was just hardship and difficulty with the associations paying them in a lot of cases. So we're coming back to season, and we're really excited to try to get back into play with all these different groups, and still don't know what that means this year, if it's going to be an abbreviated season starting midsummer and going to into the portion of the fall, or how that's going to work. But in the fee schedule that we have, and looking to make some improvements to this, because it's frankly confusing what's in our fee schedule, and wanted to get council's input on at least on the athletic association and our local athletic groups, such as that, whether it be the baseball, softball, football that is sponsored and ran by our athletic association, on some direction for staff on what you'd like us to see us do. Do we want to come up with a fee with that, or do we want to continue operating it as we historically did, years back, where it was more so absorbed as part of our park and rec program?
Yeah, I think in the past, we've always, I think starting with Jeannie.
Correct.
I think that's when we started to actually charge them.
Right.
And we might have charged them beforehand, but I don't, we've charged them, but I don't think we've ever collected from them.
Correct.
So I would say, if we're not collecting from them, and they do offer a service to the city, if it's organized for our community, and that is the NSPAA, the association, and do they take on other things besides softball and?
Well, softball, baseball, t-ball, there's football that's ran through all that. And so that's the conversation I wanted to just have with council, to make sure there's a comfort level one way or the other. And then some of these other fees that are listed in here, we've got softball league, we've got baseball, field prep, $25 for a field prep. That doesn't cover anything. I mean, if we're truly going to, if we're trying to charge for something, but $25 doesn't cover a field prep. And the contract softball league, $75 per field per day. Then there was a softball league fee at $75 or $72 per game night. So we're going to have some recommendations on those to correct those fees before we get started here. But primarily what I'm looking for direction tonight is on the athletic association, because that's really our big one as we're trying to promote the athletic association, and they're trying to get back on the ground after a year of no play. I want to get your direction from council.
I would say the NSPA, we probably would not charge them, but I'll turn it over to Councilmember Cole. I'll go right down the line, see what everybody thinks.
NSPA, I mean, first off, do we have any idea what it costs to maintain the ball fields throughout the season?
We've got
Just rough ballpark?
ballpark. I don't have it with, but we have done many renditions of field cost with lighting and mowing and all of that, and I can send that out to council. We've done it multiple times over the years. I can tell you just in lighting itself, and this depends on if we're in a demand, let's say we're in the summertime and we're in a high heat and we have a lot of usage going on, and the lights happen to get turned on to it at a demand time, the cost to run those field lights, there isn't a adult team or a youth team that could afford to turn those lights on because of that. So those are the kinds of things that's not something that happens routinely, but that happens. And if we were legitimately charging out the actual cost to these teams and players to use the fields, it would be prohibitive in use. And I think that's why we've seen, especially with our athletic associations, they've always looked at it as a function of our parks and have not had the wherewithal to be able to make those payments.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with North St. Paul Athletic Association. There not being any fees. I think that's just part of one of the services the city provides, the parks provide, helps keep the barrier to entry for, residents in the sports low. I do know that there's still a fee associated with registering to play ball, play football, et cetera, and that usually covers cost of the equipment or the, jerseys or whatever. But I'm fine with waiving all the fees for North St. Paul. But the reason I asked was just sheer curiosity when it comes to softball leagues and other things.
Yeah, and like I say, we're putting all this other information together because they're just starting to get some calls with things, but we used to provide, an adult league, we'd provide softballs, we'd provide umpires, we'd provide all of that. So some of these fees are skewed differently than that, and what we are looking at now is basically just a field use, and those teams would come in, they would provide their own umpires, they'd provide their balls, they'd provide their insurance, they'd provide all those things. So we'll come back with a recommendation for the field use in general for everything outside of the athletic association, if that's the direction, but that's what I'm looking for tonight.
Okay.
Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, can you give me a little bit of context in who, is it youth? You said adult, but also largely a youth program, and then it sounds like there is a registration fee. Is that registration fee ever been prohibitive to any of the residents?
The registration fee, and this is for youth sports only through the athletic association, and the registration is conducted by the athletic association, so we don't control or operate that at all. And they also have, or at least in previous years, they had an angel fund built within their own program to try to be able to allow, kids of need that they could help them out so that no one was turned away. And so that just kind of magnifies that if we're charging fees for an athletic association group where it is all youth sports.
Yeah, I just was curious if we're, waiving fees, and the services should be allowed to a wider audience. So
Right.
if they do, in fact, have that guardian fund or scholarship fund or sliding scale or whatever they're doing, then I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Thorson?
I guess I'm trying to recall, we've had this conversation in the past, and I think there was some discussion too about the school district usage of these same facilities, and they're kind of in the same boat where, they interpreted the use as a park and that they shouldn't have to pay the fees. And again, I'm perfectly comfortable with that as long as we have an understanding of the true cost. And I think our electric director, he did share some specific dollar amounts because I don't know the terminology, but those bulbs, what are they? They're fluorocarbon
Yeah.
something.
Sure.
You fire them up, it takes them a while to get fully charged, and then they're on and they're just spinning the meter. Well, I mean, it's 2021 and we have LED technology too, and obviously there's costs involved with retrofitting or replacing, but if it costs so much money to turn those on versus how much to replace it, maybe that helps moving forward, lessen that blow and bring that cost down. I mean, because to me, it doesn't make sense to keep using those old lights if they cost so much money and we're not getting any user fees back from it. I mean, yeah, you can make the argument it's the cost of a park, but not every park is lit, so
I
it's
think
unique
that's
to
a
that
good
use.
conversation that we could have is, electric director will be at the council meeting later tonight for our energy conservation kits that we're talking about. And maybe that's something that some of those dollars could be used to update those, field lights, like you say, to LED, because they've been there, since the field has been built in the 91, about that era. So maybe that's a possibility also.
And I just would like to also state that if we're gonna extend this to the North St. Paul Athletic Association and the school district, we should also be extending it to any other nonprofits that may wanna use the facility, because how can we say, well, because North St. Paul Youth Athletic is essentially a nonprofit too. And if we tell them, you don't have to pay the fees, but, Bobby's baseball youth program, nonprofit wants to use it, but we charge them a fee, I think that's probably not right.
Yeah.
Just to stay consistent, and if we're gonna take that stance that this is a park, and it's to be funded through city dollars, and we're not gonna charge fees for nonprofits, then we do that, but, I mean, yeah, if we're going to charge fees, we should have at least an idea of what it costs. I mean, if you're saying $25 for a baseball field prep doesn't even scratch the surface, well, what would the actual cost be?
Well, an example of that, let's say we've got a game going on the weekend, and we're bringing in an employee on the weekend. $25 doesn't cover the salary, let alone the equipment and equipment or material costs for chalking the field or things like that. But so we'll get some of that information together for you, and I'll come back with a recommendation of what that is. And I can tell you, I'm also planning a meeting with the school district on the field use, because, yeah, they're using McKnight, but same thing with dragging and chalk and things like that, to come to an understanding that, are they going to provide the material or something, so that we're at least getting the material costs back out of the school district and things like that are running the program through the schools. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that would be beneficial to actually have our list of costs, full costs, true costs, because if we're gonna ask them to help be a partner and contribute, and we don't have a firm grasp on that, that's gonna be hard to do.
Okay.
I think we had those numbers at one time.
We've got them in many different
Cost was,
renditions over the years.
It was kind of astronomical.
Yeah,
When you talk about lights and all that.
right. But I guess just as a consensus, if council is in agreeance, is, that we're going down the right path with the athletic association, just for planning purposes as we put this together, and they're trying to start their hopeful registration process here within the next month, that they have an idea what to expect.
And,
Councilmember,
oh, one
go ahead.
last, because every year, our electric fund is required to spend a certain amount of dollars on, what is it?
Energy conservation.
Energy conservation, yeah.
Yes.
And that's part of what we're gonna talk about tonight, but would that fall into the retrofitting of those field lights and any city park lights to LED? Would that fall into that category? Is that outside of
I
that?
think there's a percentage that qualifies. I know, like, when we did our street lights, there was a percentage. It's not all, but I think there's a percentage that qualifies, and electric director could talk about that tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should waive the fees for our, the Athletic Association. I know, Oakdale and Maplewood, I mean, they're already setting up, I don't know when we're gonna start, but I know a lot of people are gonna be leaving North St. Paul and going to these other communities, because we were a little late, not late, but they were getting nervous that they wanted to find a place to play. So I'm glad that we're going in the right direction, so.
I don't think we've never had it was never advertised that we weren't open.
No, and that's this is the Athletic Association that's conducting it, so it's not our,
I just don't think we have the numbers.
no.
The Athletic Association has approached us and said the numbers just aren't there like they used to be. I
Correct.
don't know if it's our area that it's.
Well, and even pre-COVID, the teams were merging together to be able to have enough teams to play, because they only had like 2 teams, or they'd be playing each other each week or every week. So they merged teams with our neighboring to be able to create a league. So, okay.
All right.
Next item that we have is our review, and this one, we've been talking about this one for a little bit coming. Review of the downtown streetscape and sidewalk design. We've got Morgan Dolly, our engineer here this evening with WSB. And then we'll also have Paul Hornby on the line to be able to help with the presentation of this. And maybe we can bring up the slides to share those so everybody can see that. Paul, are you able to share a screen?
I'm just checking, just a second.
What's his name? Paul Harvey?
Hornby.
Or, I thought maybe if we had Paul Harvey on the line, good day?
The spitting image, too.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Right. Can you see my screen now?
Yep. Maybe if you could make it larger, Paul.
Oh, sure. Zoom in a little bit.
There we go. So, and I'll let Paul walk through this, but this is there's a couple different images that they've put together. This is an overhead image, obviously. And so this is what we've been talking about with, instead of the cast in place concrete benches and planters in the downtown, about the potential of eliminating some of those and replacing those with movable tables and chairs and planters that could be taken out seasonally. So in the wintertime, the tables and chairs and planters would be removed for ease of plowing and maintenance. And then in the summertime, the tables and chairs and planters would be able to go in there. But Paul, why don't you go ahead and go through what you've got for us?
Right. And then also let me know if I'm speaking too softly. I just want to make sure you can hear me. So in the original plan of the downtown area, we did have some, a rather large landscaping area right up here on the corner. This is Margaret Street over here, and 7th Avenue going to the southwest. And looking at some potential outdoor dining areas or outdoor seating areas, we just looked at some places where we could maybe fit those in. So for reference, here's Roddy's Bar. We've got, I think, the bookstore is next door. We've got Newman's down here, Full Throttle, and then the post office is down on the left end here. So in front, or close in front of Roddy's, we have an area where we can take some landscaping out and kind of provide almost like a dining room in the sidewalk patio kind of an area. We are showing some planters on the curb side and also on the pedestrian side of the sidewalk. In this concept, we have just this area that would have been in the landscaping shown as the patio. We could do something like we were showing down the block, where maybe this could be expanded out a little bit. It is kind of close to a heavier pedestrian area here with the corner, so that's something that maybe could be discussed. But then down to the southwest, we have some individual tables. What we're trying to do is provide at least 6 feet of space for sidewalk between the building faces and the planters. Ideally, it'd be 8 feet, but we're probably cheating on that a little bit with the planter width, just to try to set those areas aside to keep the pedestrian traffic out. Planters, again, here along the parking would protect the seating area from the parking area. There is still some of the features we tried to keep in. There's a light pole here, and then there is in some of the other figures will show there's still a seat wall in these 2 locations. There's still one down here as well, but it's a net grade planter with a street light and a seat wall in these half circle locations.
What do you call it?
Seat wall. You'll be able to see it a little better on the next slide that he has.
And then we'd still have some raised planters. This would still be where the signal cabinets are. That'd still be a raised planter, which the raised planter means it has a curb around it and plantings and mulch inside. Here's another one that's got a larger tree in it. And then some of these smaller planters have some low-lying landscaping and also a tree, just to try to keep, that vegetated area with the improvement that we had in the original plan. And then to take a look at how this might look from street level, you can see we've got this, the service cabinet, the lighting cabinet and the signal cabinet, and the new light and the new signal poles in here. Here would be the split area of the landscaping. We still have a hydrant in here. And then we'd have the seating areas. We did look at some different types of planters. We haven't really selected any, but have some ideas what could be used in those areas. You can see where how that would fit in as far as the proximity from Robbie's at this particular location and the bookstore. And if we go down to the other end, here in Newman's, showing the street light, how that would look. Here's that seat wall feature that's still in this concept. It was in the original plan as well, but showing the different planters. These planting boxes would be, what we're looking at right now is probably something that's precast concrete or perhaps a composite type of a planter with a wet well in it, so the plants don't need a continuous watering schedule. But it provides seating and tables in this area.
Hey, Paul?
Yes.
It's Morgan. Can you tell the council a little bit about the seasonality of some of these amenities as well, too? So, what happens in the wintertime, for example?
Thank you, Morgan. So in the way we're looking at this is that these planters would be portable, so we don't have issues with snow plowing in the wintertime. These could be picked up and stored at Public Works or in another offsite location, and that way it wouldn't interfere with snow plowing in the wintertime or sidewalk clearing or with the parking and snow storage. I know that's space is a premium downtown, and oftentimes having to haul that snow out is a task for Public Works. So the idea would be that all these things would be portable. Obviously the tables and the planters. Tables, we have to find a way to keep them in there in the overnight hours and so forth. But there's certainly a way to do that. They could be secured overnight. And then we still have the landscaping be vibrant. Here's that raised curb that I mentioned earlier around these raised planters. You can see that up close in these areas, and then also on the smaller ones. There's still a raised planter around where the seat wall locations are, and then you kind of see at the edge of the drawing this little raised planter down here, and that kind of provides some separation between the seating areas for patrons and so forth.
So one of the, as Paul has that up there, that seat wall that was there in the original concept drawing, there was multiples of those down there. So where those portable seats are now, there would have been multiple of those seat walls in there. And again, those are permanent, so they're not movable. And I guess so that was a concern, that it takes up space year round. But then even from a wintertime, that one back, maybe Paul, if you can show the one back by the light pole again on that second slide. So on the one that's there, I think there's 7.5 feet between the face of that seat wall and the front of the building. So we still maintain some space there. But the question whether it is also to leave that type of seat wall in there, or do we take that out and use more of the portable things? The only thing, and I'll reflect back to what the downtown was before, where we had some of those arched benches, and they were concrete that was poured up out of the ground, and then it was wood. Well, over the years, yeah, you can replace and maintain the wood, but if the concrete gets damaged or scored or whatever over time, that's a big project to replace that. You're hammering out 2 foot thick concrete and everything else to replace it. So I just bring that up as whether we don't put that in there and stay more with the planters that can be, look good in the summertime and they're removed in the wintertime and when we're doing snow removal. So just another thing to think about.
Morgan, are they using these in newer cities who are doing their downtowns? And, you think we could learn from what they've done, and, you know, Hopkins, I don't know if that's a newer downtown or,
Yep, and I can't, I was just there not too long ago, I can't recall if they have seat walls, but that is a fairly common kind of passive thing to include in a streetscape project so that, you know, it serves a couple different purposes. I mean, it's a little bit of a border, a division between maybe a landscape area and where people would be walking. Obviously, people can sit on it during an event or, you know, if they're waiting to be seated outside of, you know, a restaurant or something like that, that's certainly a possibility. So it's kind of a multi-function, relatively low cost. I mean, it's just cast in place concrete. So, but to Scott's point, and I think the concern here is from a maintenance standpoint and snow removal, knowing that snow removal downtown is fairly complicated endeavor. Over time, when you have, even if, not just the seat wall, but also these slightly raised sections that were originally conceived, again, to border the planting area, what will those look like after 10 or 15 or 20 years? I mean, they could get chipped up or bonked up, you know, from just normal, you know, not negligent, but normal snow removal activities, right? And so I think the thought here is before the concrete gets poured out of the truck, that we wanted to have this conversation with the council just to make sure that if it makes sense to maybe pull back on some of these things, especially in some of the tighter areas, right? If there's a wide expanse of area for snow removal equipment to operate, maybe be a little bit easier. But we certainly don't want these things to look like they're in tough shape after the significant investment of this project. And now's certainly the time to just double check on those things.
You know, because even as Morgan just mentioned, so a curb that might stick up 4 or 5 inches, well, when you've got that snow covered and plowing, that's going to be found by bumping into it with a blade. There's not, I mean, we can put markers out there and things like that, and then obviously you take the care that's needed. But over time, there's, just as Paul's showing there on the screen, those types of things along there, I mean, those would have to be marked out carefully so that we, I just want to make sure that we're able to maintain a nice, clean appearance down there for a long period of time and not create problems that we're going to wish we didn't do.
because I know, like, even during the car show, we need seating areas.
Yep.
You know, whether they're permanent or temporary or whatever, but we do need some
Right.
sort of.
Right.
And the other thing, besides this seating that they're showing on here, we do have those green, those 6-foot-long green powder coat benches that they're pretty new, that we've taken out to go back in the downtown. So we've got those that can go in areas that can be permanently, you know, fastened. But again, if something changes, those can be moved and unbolted or whatever. And then we also have the bike racks that's been talked about, that some of those would go in areas of the sidewalks in the downtown.
And we did have, you know, even though the plans have been completed, but we did have those discussions about those potential flexibilities, I guess, in terms of the final amenities that might happen, not just with this phase, but the future, you know, end-to-end visioning or master planning of the whole corridor. So there is flexibility, and I think that from a practical standpoint, and again, knowing some of the challenges that the community felt, and if you want to call them complaints in terms of what downtown looked like in this exact area, you know, in terms of the different colors of concrete, and some were in good shape and some were in bad shape. I mean, it's an opportunity, fairly easy to pull this sort of stuff out. Certainly, as we're showing here, there's the ability to have portable things that provide seating or whatever, so there's some ability to accomplish those same things. And it's a minor detail from, you know, from a cost standpoint, but once the concrete is poured and cured, very difficult to get rid of, right? So,
Paul, could you touch base maybe on the, so you can see all the circular designs and the concrete curb cuts in there for design purposes. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and even some of the areas that don't have the benches still mimic those same circular areas. Talk about that, I guess, and I bring that up for future, we need a section of sidewalk that we're going to have to replace to try to recreate those lines, those design lines in there in the future. But go ahead, Paul, if you could talk to that a little bit.
Yes, and that's a good point. And during construction, what we'll end up doing, to make these shapes, these half circle shapes, especially those are going to be the more difficult ones, especially some of these smaller ones. We'll actually have a survey crew come out and stake these points so the contractor can lay them out. So this isn't the most complicated pattern, but they'll need a radius point. They'll need to know where these joints are going to be. And so right now we're planning that the survey crew would come out and lay those joints out, and especially on some of these break points, we'll lay those out because it's not going to be intuitive to let the concrete crew go out and just start laying out joints on their own. So it certainly wouldn't look uniform. And then again, if you have something where you have some maintenance where it requires the removal of a panel, then trying to replace it and trying to mimic the joints that were there, it can look misshapen and that kind of thing over time. So looking at the type of pattern or it's easier with a grid, but the pattern that is shown in the plan does provide some character as well. So.
And I bring that up just because from an overhead view, you can see the patterns and everything there, but from a practical standpoint, if it's at grade and you're walking on the sidewalk, how noticeable will that be, and is it worth the effort in the future for having to replace a panel? I mean, again, I want the aesthetics to look good and that, but also thinking about long-term maintenance, and if we have to replace a panel, a small panel could turn into a very large panel to try to recreate those design that's built into it. So just more for conversation.
And you met with the bar owners about this layout, or have they seen
They have
this?
not seen that yet.
Okay.
This was when we talked about it at the business association, just in conversation. But, so my intention was to bring it here to the council this evening and get your feedback, but then to be able to take this plan or any, changes that you'd recommend, and then bring this to the business association in our upcoming meeting to talk about this, to get their input so that everybody knows what to expect and what changes we might hear.
How much time do we have, Morgan?
Couple months.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm open to, this is great that we're considering this and doing it, and if it doesn't work, we can always come back and revisit it, but I think their feedback, or just not just the bars, but all the businesses downtown should be vital in what their opinions are. And also, there's that idea too of, at least during events, turning some of those parking spaces into like an expanded patio too. So maybe if, let's say, one place doesn't like the fact that they have this concrete bench instead of having additional outdoor seating, maybe that's where they could say, well, you can open up some spots here to use as a patio if they don't have a patio. But yeah, I think it's great.
Good.
Thank you for the work on this. I have a question in regards to just kind of how the maintenance of the tables will be if people are eating there. Is there, what kind of table, is it going to be easy to clean, things like that? And
Yeah, and at this point, there's been no selection. Paul, I'll let you comment on anything, but there's been no selections of tables or even the planters. With some of the different planters we've seen, like I said, there was a composite style that has fork pockets built into it so equipment can move them. And then they've got a water cavity so that you can fill water and then it wicks up into the plant so you're not having to water every day. But then the tables and chairs, what would be, what type, what material? I know the businesses were really excited about what went on last year with what we had to do to get them outside. And so there's been a lot of interest in doing this and whatever we do so that we do the same tables and chairs in the downtown for uniformity and we don't have, someone providing mix match of different things.
Councilmember Cole?
I love the planner idea. The maintenance and I'm assuming has all been taken into consideration from a costing standpoint, what it'll cost us annually to remove and install and plant, et cetera, and we'll find funding in the budget to cover that. Questions and concerns around the tables. Are they going to become outdoor dining spaces for the downtown restaurants that the city's providing? What are we gonna do for liquor laws outside? Are they gonna be roped off, as some of the other communities have done during COVID, to be able to allow for outdoor seating and still be able to consume alcoholic beverages outside of the building? Are these shared costs that we could look to from those who would use it? I love the idea of uniformity and everything looking nice. You know, but does the seating become a benefit for the bars and restaurants? Or is the seating a benefit for those who are downtown just to use it?
I think there's interest in the business association and potentially the bars, all the groups, contributing to it, to contribute to the purchase and maintenance of. I mean, so far, there's been a lot of excitement about doing it. The liquor, we did it last year where they were able to bring it out in front of their business, and how do we maintain that and stay within an area so we don't end up having the walking? I mean, that's something that we're gonna have to talk about and work with our insurance carriers and how that best fits.
And then with reference to pattern in the concrete, I guess I don't necessarily notice pattern in the concrete when I walk, to your point, Scott. It looks great from an overhead view, but do you get credit for it as you're walking down? I don't know. Could you do the same thing with, linear patterns that you can remove a chunk at a time as opposed to have to try to recreate arcs?
Yeah, and I think, the thing that's changed over time too, you used to have the old mechanical joint that was a wide joint open, and now you're doing a lot of sawing, so we don't have those open wide joints that are collecting so much material and weed growth and all that type of thing. But yeah, the pattern is a big thing just for replacement, because where I bring that up is past experience. We had, remember, we had the kind of the cobblestone stamped sidewalk areas in the downtown, and then we'd have regular concrete, or we'd have colored concrete. And when something would happen, well, then we immediately lost that pattern, or if we didn't lose the pattern, it was an enormous cost and project to try to match it.
Usually impossible to
Yeah.
actually match it.
Right.
And then one last comment around raised curbs. I've seen other community downtown where they have raised planters, but as opposed to concrete curbing, they've used big stone to where you can replace pieces of it at a time. If something got knocked out, you'd be able to, I've seen quartz used in cities and,
Sure.
other materials as well. You head out east and you see a lot of white stone. I don't have any idea what it is, but they use that as actual curbing on their streets. Is that cost prohibitive, or is that another area that if somebody comes through with a plow and knocks a corner off, we're only replacing a little 4-foot slab that lifts in and out, as opposed to having to break out and re-pour?
Councilmember Peterson?
Like the concept, I think we should keep the sidewalk really simple just because of the maintenance. I mean, I like the sleek look of it, and yeah, I'm excited about it. So, thanks.
One of my concerns is right on the corner there of Margaret and 7th, the planting, the big planting, and right at the crosswalk there. During the car show, it gets really congested right there. And I don't know if we can scale that back a little bit. I mean, just a thought of if you,
Can you go to the overhead view, Paul?
Mayor, you're talking about the one on
it's a tight corner there when people cross the street.
talking about the one on Margaret?
Yep, right, not in front of Roddy's, but the other one there, the long one,
So on Margaret, north of 7th Avenue there.
right behind the Zoom people there.
Okay. So we don't have that.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so on the other side of the street there.
Nope, right there on the corner.
Oh, right there.
But we also did soften that curve, that radius a little bit with this design, just because we did have some comments when the project was being developed about trucks or vehicles overrunning the curb. So we tried to make that a little bit better to negotiate. So I think it's a little bit better in the design we have now. Unless you're seeing people returning to those habits. But I think part of the issue we have too is there was kind of a pseudo turn lane from going from the southwest to the northeast, with people making that turn onto Margaret from 7th. So I think with this design, we've made that radius a little larger, and that should help with that issue. I mean, would a school bus or a semi be able to get around that way? I think it'd still be difficult to negotiate.
I'm not saying take away the curb. The planting part there,
Oh, just the planting.
just the planting part. It's
So
pretty
just-
tight up to that corner there. And during the car show, we get a lot, nope, the other planter, yep.
So not coming down quite all the way
Coming
to the
down not quite
intersection,
so
Pull
far.
it back a little bit further? Yeah, that's easy. I shouldn't speak. Paul, that's easy, right?
I don't know if that makes sense to the council or not, but it seems like during the car show that people queue right in that corner there to cross, and they have the planting
Yeah.
there. People are gonna kind of sneak in between the planter and the curb, and it might be more of a pedestrian.
No,
More sidewalk, less planting is what you said.
Yep, yeah. Each one of those squares is maybe 5 by 5, and so, I can see us pulling that back maybe 2 squares, 10 feet or something like that, which would, anyone who might be queuing there, or maybe they want to go north on Margaret, they won't have to go so much around the planting area. They'll have some sidewalk to walk on, right? So, Paul, are you tracking on all this? It makes sense to me.
Yeah, and then we actually modified this also during construction, mainly because we have a fiber optic cable in here that we have to try to
Okay.
get around.
So we'll need to do some field visiting on it, but I think we can accomplish what you're talking about pretty easily, Mr. Mayor.
We could truncate this or make it smaller if this is the area where you're having a lot of pedestrian queuing here, so.
Yep. So are we, you're gonna bounce it off the businesses, but we're hearing maybe a general consensus towards more maintainable and less curvy, less circles?
Yeah, and what's council's thoughts on the potential of eliminating the seat benches by the light poles? You want to leave those in there, or what do you think about taking those out, which would potentially open it up for more seating if we need it? We don't have to put it there, but it would allow more of the portable seating.
The seat benches, right? And you asked about Hopkins before, Mr. Mayor, and so while we've been talking, I was street viewing through downtown Hopkins. They don't have any seat benches. They do have a few different things that are movable, so it looks like they have some movable planters, and they've also got some movable seating things that look like just kind of big blocks of stone that they can pick up and take out or, move around. So it looks like they're trending towards less permanent and less monolithic and more portable.
The other thing that would allow, especially in this location that's shown right down in front of Newman's there, that's all their outdoor patio, which has a door coming out of that. So if that concrete seat bench wasn't there, it would also lend itself to more accessibility to that.
Ingress and egress.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll get the comments from the council then and see what you think. Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, it's not, like you said, Scott, we could put those benches there and move them around if, versus this, it's there, it's hard to move, or at least there's significant costs in moving it, so I'm supportive of that. But again, I think feedback from the downtown business community should drive that most, and if the feedback is, yeah, we'd like more portable seating, I don't see an issue with that.
Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable, thing to inquire with the businesses, and I do have a little bit of concern right there with the outdoor patio and it kind of jutting out, the bench jutting out into that outdoor patio next to Newman's. Just not sure, if that kind of infringes on that a little bit, but I would be, fine with portable as well.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Wong about that jetting out. And of course have the business people have some input, of course. So that's it.
Councilmember Cole?
Yeah, I'm all on board with the business community having say in it and probably portability, because if I look at it, you've got 7.5 feet between where the bench would be in that door. And on Friday nights, there's quite a bit of traffic going in and out of that door, and it also is an area of congestion, so, yeah, I'm, yeah.
Morgan, you can tell me if, so the cars, when they pull in, how much of the car goes over the curb? So we're gonna lose, you talk about the portable, and I know this is, just a schematic or a show, but normally when a car pulls up, they're gonna pull, their front end goes in 2 feet.
Yeah, it could be, depends on the car, but it
Depends on the
could be
car.
2 or 3, and also depends on how aggressive somebody wants to actually roll up and hit the curb. Not
Right.
everybody does that, right?
So
But
putting these portable things out, you
we
want
would
to get
need
it.
to, yeah, we would
to the
need to
point where-
accommodate that. This is, like you said, more schematic, and actually, our landscape architect, before we brought this to you, even said, just so you know, we
Right.
need a little bit of space there, yep. But that's absolutely true, about 2 to 3 feet.
And talking about a wall, or I know along the, where the post office is during the car show, that wall gets a lot of use. People sit on that wall. If there's any other areas that we can put some sort of seating, natural seating, I would say. And I'm sure that's gonna stay there, or
That comes out.
that comes out.
Yeah. Paul, to that point, could you talk about that? What is the plan for the planter that's currently along the post office parking lot for replacement there?
Yeah, it's actually indicated for removal. And actually have to go back and look to see if it's still there, but anything that was within the right of way in this area was slated to come out, and then this, the back of the walk would come right up to the curb they have in the parking lot.
So there was, to your remembrance, there's not a new raised planter or anything to go along that parking lot?
No,
Okay. So that'd be another thing we could think about and look at.
So my biggest, we got 2 months. We want to do it right because this is going to be in for a long time. I just want to make sure we, if there's opportunities to really improve the things down there, that we do it right. We're not putting stuff, like you say, those seating benches that are in a bad spot, but maybe we can create some other ones in other areas that
Be moved, or that, if they don't work in one place, they can be
we could be
repurposed to
working on.
another, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Paul.
thank you.
So we'll schedule a meeting with the, actually get notice out there to the business community and
Right, and
have it at,
it'll be for sure at our business association meeting upcoming. We talked about it there to be that, but we'll get this out
but I want to make sure all the businesses are told because
Yep.
we only have a handful of people there that,
and we'll put it out in the newsletter to make sure that they all get it and we get their feedback, because that's really important with this.
we'll just tell them we're assessing them, I don't know, $5,000 each, and then we'll get them all down there, and
Right?
sometimes that works. All right.
Okay, thank you. Next item is, I'll keep moving along so we can try to get through all this stuff. Next item is our Ramsey County HRA. And this is something that is new. Try to explain as much as I know about it so far. Ramsey County has had an HRA, but has not levied or assessed out to residents in the past. They've had CBD block grant money and things like that that they've used for programming. unique situation with this. I didn't know it, but because of this with Ramsey County, some of the things that we found, or that they found, brought up to us, they're looking for we would at some point need to pass a resolution of support if the council deems that on board with this. City of St. Paul and the City of North St. Paul have had a HRA since 1971. So because of that, the way the statute reads, Ramsey County would have to get our authority to be able to tax the residents in North St. Paul and also St. Paul as part of their HRA. So we can opt in or opt out. We can opt in now. And if in the future we decided that funding out of those dollars weren't coming back to North St. Paul in a way that we thought there was beneficial to the community, we could opt out of it at any time also. What this is intended to do is to create a funding within Ramsey County. All the cities in Ramsey County that participate, and all of them will be in with the question of North St. Paul and St. Paul. They'd have to do that resolution, as I mentioned. It would be an application process for funds available in this, and I think this would generate, was it 11.6, up to $11.6 million a year. And their hope is that this would help with a multitude of different areas of affordable housing, being able to keep families in homes, just a whole host of different homeowner and rental opportunities for housing within the county. Again, it would be an application process. Just because we're a participating community, there's not a guaranteed X number of dollars that we would receive from it from a year. We'd have to apply just like any other agency would, and then those funds would be awarded based on the merit of the project. However, they are very knowledgeable and understanding that they're going to attempt to make sure that the suburban cities, because as you can imagine, St. Paul, if St. Paul is going to participate in this, they're going to have 50% of the funding availability. So I think the concern that I've heard out there from other cities is, if they do this, is all the money going to go to St. Paul? And they're going to put some checks and balances in place for that to ensure that that doesn't happen regularly or all the time. But there's, on the flip side, there's been other cities, I think New Brighton one year was awarded a large program, and so dollars came from Ramsey County to fund that. So there's a multitude of different possibilities with this. By our participating, it would allow us, open our funding up to the availability of this, $11 million or the fund balances. This would have no effect on our current HRA program that we have. Our North St. Paul HRA program would continue to exist just as it is today. If the council passed a resolution to support this, Ramsey County would be able to levy our North St. Paul residents, and that would show up on their tax statement as a Ramsey County HRA. And then our North St. Paul HRA would remain separate and independent on our tax statement. Estimated that it would cost about $45 per household on a median valued home. And give you an example, ours right now, I believe, is at, I think ours is at $30.98 a year per median value home. So that's some of the details on it. I guess I'll just open for some questions. I'm learning about this from the county. It's been something that they've been working on for quite some time and really focused on trying to help with the affordability throughout the Ramsey County.
Any comments, Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, I guess, I'm reading this, I mean, it's obvious, it's a sales pitch from Ramsey County to get us to agree to participate. But just like you pointed out, we're already offering our own HRA program, and by participating, we're essentially more than doubling the cost to be in it, and then there's no guarantee, or control over how that program is going to be administered. So I mean, we can take them for what they say now, but what's actually gonna happen, how many projects are gonna take place in North St. Paul. But I get that this is, you know, the idea is to help the community as a whole, the county as a whole, but again, you know, we're already engaged in this activity. They mention affordability a lot, but they don't define what that means, so I guess I'd be interested to know, what do they mean by affordable housing? I mean, they do talk about some income levels and stuff, but, you know, what do they define as affordable housing? And so I guess, yeah, I'd just like some more time to look into this and to get some more defined answers on some questions on that.
Yeah, and what this would, you know, potentially allow is obviously for much larger projects. You know, the projects that we're doing is the single family, but I think this is an opportunity, or could be an opportunity for a much larger scale. However, it can be the ongoing smaller projects too, because they're gonna be an application process, and that will be awarded every year based on the pool. So there could be, you know, there could be 50 awards one year, there may be one award. There might be a project that comes up someplace in the county for a large multifamily unit maybe, and then if it ranks high enough, that's where the funds would be awarded. Or it could be multiple smaller projects, and it could be, you know, mortgage assistance programs to keep families in their homes, a variety of things. And we'll gather more information, and I think there's also an opportunity, if council would like, that, and have someone from the Ramsey County's Community Development Department to come out at a meeting, and we can talk about it in real detail. But I wanted to at least get this out to you, so you can start having some of those thoughts, and then I can get something set up for a future meeting.
Councilmember Wong.
Thank you. You know, I am looking at this, and for me, when I read this and the affordability, the focus on affordability, which typically is based on the area median income when we're talking about housing, is that it resonates with our comprehensive plan. You know, I work in my day job in programs for people experiencing limited income. And so from what I've seen in the community, I think that these programs can be extremely beneficial, especially if it's helping to prevent, you know, what happens when people become homeless. So I think it's, I guess you can say, if you want to say it in economic terms, it's cheaper to house people than, you know, provide services, et cetera, once they've already lost their home or are homeless. So for me, you know, I think this is more of a smart regional investment that I think we can collaborate with the rest of the county on. So don't have any questions, but I would say I would lean that way.
Councilmember Cole.
Yeah, I'm of the need more information piece of it right now, just to fully understand and weigh out the pluses and the minuses, or the benefits for our community, as we already have. You know, already have something. Also looking into affordability, and is that the same now as low-income housing? Is that, are they defined the same? I know each communities do have a certain percentage of homes that fall under that category. I don't know what North St. Paul is, or where we are. I guess I would be interested to find that information out. And again, it just, you know, quick nuts and bolts of it is roughly 4,000 homes at $40 a house is $160,000. So the pool that North St. Paul would generate isn't a big pool. I don't know if we would get our fair share back. I again, just, you know, needing to find out more of what this whole thing is.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I'd like a little bit more information too before I sign off. Just because there is a little money involved from our coffer, our citizens. A little bit more information is needed for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like, Scott, I remember from the meeting, it sounds like we're kind of in control of their destiny because we're one of only 2 cities that actually had a HRA.
Right.
And they're really looking for our support. So, and I would agree with the council that we would benefit from having a representative from the county to answer a lot of these questions.
Well, and especially St. Paul, because you've got a city like St. Paul that they're going to have to support this by resolution also. And without that, I mean, that's potentially 50% of the county's funding
Well, I'm
availability.
assuming they're very supportive of it because most of it's going to go towards that county.
Correct. So, yeah, I'll get something set up so we can have someone attend one of the meetings and go into this more detail. But if you've got, if there's things that come up or questions, then maybe we can kind of make a list so that we can make sure that when they do come up, they're prepared for those based off the information that we had here. And the resolution that I put in here was a sample draft resolution that they would be looking for us to adopt if we were to move that direction. And just so you know that I did confirm that if we do this, we do have the opportunity to move out of it in a future time.
Okay.
So,
Good.
okay?
All right. Looks like Jason might be up.
So, yes, we have brought our fire chief this evening. We talked about before, trying to bring someone from the different departments each night to give you a chance to meet and greet and hear a little bit about what's going on in the department. So this evening, we've got our fire chief, Jason Mallinger.
Welcome, Jason.
I'm on now. Hi, Mayor. Hi, City Council. City Manager Scott Dudek. I know you have another item on the ticket you want to get to before the council meeting this evening. I did put together some notes, but I just wanted to, one, introduce myself to Tim Cole, even though I know we've informally met, but new council member Lisa Wong as well. So most people obviously know me, a little bit of background about myself and kind of where I came from at this point. But I obviously I live in the city of North St. Paul. I'm married, and we're coming upon 25 years this fall. My wife works as a social worker right now with Washington County. I have 2 adult children. They're both girls. One graduated from Iowa State, and one's currently in her freshman year at University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. I joined the fire department, the part-time paid-on-call side of things, back in 1989, so a long time ago. And previous to that, I was even part of our Fire Explorer program for a good 4 years. So I spent a lot of time around this area dreaming of being a firefighter, and here I am. I've held the positions of firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, safety officer, captain, assistant chief, deputy chief, and my current position as well. I came to North St. Paul in the full-time aspect in the year of 2000 when I was hired in Public Works, and I was previously full-time in Washington County Department of Transportation. And then in 2005, began my career in the fire department, full-time side as a fire inspector and code compliance officer. So that's kind of me in a quick nutshell and where I'm at to this point. I do have some 2020 numbers, year in review to bounce through quick. I'm going to kind of go through things quickly, so if you want me to stop, just let me know. So as I go through things. So for us, the 2020 year, we had a busy year. We had a total of 1,478 total incidences, which is our highest amount, up 123 or 9.1% since the previous year in 2019. 277 of those calls are what we call a station all-call, where the entire department gets toned out, and 1,201 of those calls were EMS or other type-related calls. And we generally run in that range of anywhere from 75 to 80% of EMS to other type of fire type alarm accidents calls. We did have, as always, some retirements and resignations throughout the year. We had 4 members that did retire with substantial years of service through that time frame. I don't know if you want me to go through that, but we also were able to hire through our hiring process that we do that begins in the summertime and through fall. We hired in 2020 5 new part-time paid-on-call members as well. One of the comparative numbers to where we are right now in 2021, 304 total incidents as of today compared to 312 last year. So we're still on that same track, even though in January it was really slow for us and then has really picked up since then. And had in the beginning of the year a couple of retirements, or 1 retirement and 1 resignation. Obviously within our full-time fire inspector that resigned and moved on to a full-time position within another fire department. Since then, we've been able to replace our loss in the code compliance department, the part-time side, and we hired a part-time code compliance officer in early January, and we also filled our fire inspection position on March 8th with Brent Fixon, who's been on our part-time paid-on-call side as well for a few years, 8 years to be exact. I'm also in the process right now. I have a few more people that I'm still trying to get on board. One of them is a previous firefighter for us that left because he moved out of town, has since bought a home back in our community and wants to join the department where he started. So I'm really excited on getting him on board. And I have a couple others that are going through the hiring process. And for us, it's quite lengthy because they have to do a medical background check and agility tests and some other things. So currently we have 34 total firefighters on the department. That includes myself. And again, I'm looking to add 2 to 3 more here. Typically, we don't hire this time of the year because of the program we send our students to. The classes are only run annually and they start in January. But my feeling is if we have people that want to join our team, I have space, I'll figure out a way to get them on board. So I'll be looking at Century College or other options out there to get these people trained and get them on our team. So I don't want to push anybody away that's interested now and say, come back to me in 6 to 9 months, because I'm sure they may fill the void in that time frame. So I want to get those spots filled if we're able. Related to COVID, I mean, it was tough for us. We obviously made a lot of changes in 2020 and put in precautions to keep our people safe. Since then, the 1st of January, we did start receiving vaccinations for our fire department members and wrapped up our 2nd doses in the first part of February. So right now, out of our 34 firefighters, we have 28 that chose to get vaccinated, and we'll continue to follow our precautions and guidelines since we don't have everybody vaccinated at this time, and follow the CDC and MDH guidelines. Supplies for things are no concern at this point. We're in very good supply of everything that we need versus a year ago at this time when things were quite different. Working on getting back into some in-person trainings starting tomorrow for us. We'll be out at our training facility, our East Metro training facility down the corner here. And so, again, we have precautions in place and obviously do everything to keep our people safe, but we're in need of getting back out there and start our training, and that will continue from now and through the fall until things get cold again. Another venture we have going on in the city tomorrow, if we have our Ramsey County Chiefs Association meeting that's going to be held here in our training room. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we meet basically 6 times a year and bounce around through various departments. So we'll be meeting here tomorrow, and again, everybody that's coming has been vaccinated and will be wearing masks, so not too concerned with that. I'm also a part of the chair of our East Metro Public Safety Training Facility Board of that facility that we're part of. It has been quite beneficial for us to have that in our backyard and be a part of and continue to be a part of it, along with our neighboring communities, Maplewood, Oakdale, and Lake Elmo, make up of the JPA that we're part of. And our training has increased substantially, along with how we work together within our neighboring departments. I mean, we always have in the past, but it's only strengthened it and improved it as well. And I think that really shows, especially most recently, as a couple of weeks ago on February 26th, and we had an apartment fire down on 11th Avenue and 8 a.m. on a Friday morning, which is usually a difficult time to get staff members, especially on a part-time paid-on-call department, to respond. And with our auto aid agreements between our agencies, it just works so well right now because we work so well together as teams. So having Maplewood there and chief officers there and the engine company from both departments and officers, we're just able to flow together like one machine. And I was just really thankful that, one, it went as well as it did. Nobody got hurt, but we really have a really great group around us and supporting each other as well. One of the things we did do beginning in January is the addition of adding what we'll call initial duty crews to the weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. So from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we have a 3-person crew that's in station, and firefighters can sign up anywhere from a 6-hour to a 12-hour shift, and we've had really good results thus far. So minimally, I make sure that we have an officer that's on the crew or a team lead, and I give them orders the day before with multiple priorities that they have to complete along with responding to calls. And then they also have to give me an after-action report of the day's events. And really, I've seen some really good things of it lately because we've been able, and most recently this past weekend, we've had a slew of calls during the daytime on weekends, and they were able to handle those things and still complete the priorities that I had given them. So we're going to continue to monitor it and see how things go and how it helps us, but it definitely has helped in the sense of our schedule before, where we didn't have it filled by people because it's the weekend and typically, people have other things they want to do. Unless you have any questions, I think, other than going through some of my goals, I guess that's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously, getting back to normal, and not just in the realm of COVID, but just because of the changes we've had with loss of retirements to Ron Canley and as a part-time paid-on-call firefighter, code compliance officer, and the loss of Mike and fire inspections. I've been spending a lot of my time doing some fire inspections and different things that take me away from my administration duties, which is fine, but just to get caught up back to our normal flow of losing those people and get back to our normal operating speed. So And with that, with the staff we have in place right now, I believe we'll get there at some point. We have some pre-planned information that we do on all large commercial buildings and multifamily dwellings that we need to update and put into an image trend module, which is provided to us by the state. And it's new, so we need to spend some time doing that. So it's my hope to get that accomplished, and this information helps us as firefighters on scene when we're able to get to that pre-plan information, depending on the situation, to determine where certain things are: power supply, gas lines, locations of fire alarm panels, et cetera. Like I said before, I want to continue hiring part-time paid-on-call firefighters and keep that going and get our roster up to the max of 40 that we're allowed to have. All of our rental licensing properties, to get them all on OpenGov by late summer, late fall. We've already started that with the multifamilies. I've been working with Carrie on that. We started that in December and seen great results with that. Our single-family rental properties, the licensing period starts in July, so we're preparing for that and hope to have that in place by the end of the year. And then we're kind of in that transition too with code compliance using OpenGov and some of our former type methods. So we want to be able to get to that 100% by the end of this year, and believe we can accomplish that as well. We have just one vehicle, I'm hoping to replace. It's within the budget for this year. It's a 2007 or 2006 Trailblazer. And the big thing we haven't been able to do, with all the retirements, resignations, we haven't been able to do our annual appreciation dinner for the firefighters that we typically do, or the meetings to honor our accomplishments as promotions or new hires and stuff like that. So hopefully this summer, those are some of the things we'll be able to acknowledge. I've got a long list of things that need to be done. But thank you for your time. I know I could go on much longer. My door's always open, or I'm always a phone call away if anybody needs anything from me. But
Thank you for your service, and we really enjoy you being here and on the team and putting your fire crew together. Always heard good things about the chief, and so.
good, thank you.
Good things. One question for you is the Booyah.
Yeah,
How did that go last year?
it went very well.
Is it something that you're gonna
I would
maybe
say,
use the same model as?
yes, I would say we're going to try and utilize more of an online sales now this year, again, with OpenGov, to utilize the same thing that we did last year. We're just gonna refine it a little bit better. We can make it better, and we're gonna continue to do the Booyah, that's for sure. But we sold out,
You
and
still sell out.
we still sell out, yep. And we're getting to the point where there's only so much we can make. I mean, we don't have any more space, we don't have any more kettles, and there's only so much we can make. And it's not like, oh, you ran out, can you throw some more together quick? No, this is a process that takes, 30 hours to complete, so.
Any questions for?
Want to throw out, look at how many times you heard the word OpenGov. And I think that's really nice to hear, that there's so many different layers and features that we're able to use that program for and improve upon. And here's another one in the fire department for being able to do those types of things with a program that we have and an online presence. But overall, thank you, Jason, for the fire department. Work is excellent.
Any questions for Jason? Councilmember Peterson?
No, good job. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Quick, Jason, so with the upcoming trial and all that, I know what was going on last year. Is there,
So we actually were involved in some training, because last year we did send what we'll call as part of a task force team, an engine company, and and crew members into St. Paul that were actively fighting large fires with other team members that were part of the community as well, as far as like Lake Elmo and Oakdale, where we were a team. And so in February, St. Paul Fire and Police were doing some training. They invited us out there. I did send what I'll call an engine company of 7 people that comprised of mainly my officers to this training. And then we have since kind of internally trained upon it as well to deal with civil unrest when we're out there fighting fires and how to do that. So that is a large topic of discussion. I don't want to say we're prepared for it, but we have been preparing for it, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it more at our Ramsey County Chiefs meeting tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Good presentation. Scott, I think we'll do updates at the council meeting. We'll take a little break here. So motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember
Second.
Thorson, second by Councilmember Cole. In discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye, opposed nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember Cole?
Aye.
Mayor Furlong?
Aye. Meeting adjourned.